So according to Barack Obama, aliens are 100% real, and I've always been kind of curious as to what they're going to look like. Are they going to be green with gigantic foreheads, or are they going to have like bright long fingers? Honestly, my theory is that aliens are just like tiny little sperm cells. Like, that's it. They're just single-celled organisms that landed on a rock like many years ago. On a side note, does that mean that UFO hunters can stop this buffoonery and just get like real jobs? Although I guess now we're gonna have to listen to UFO hunters tell us how they were right the entire time, which honestly, I really want to see aliens, but then I also don't want to hear UFO hunters flexing on us. It's a real debate here. Anyways, all nonsense aside, let's get straight into today's video because we do have a lot to talk about. And why wouldn't I start it off with an angry rant? Because that's kind of what we do on this channel. By the way, in case you guys have been wondering where the reviews and the unboxings are, I actually am working on a video as we speak. I'm supposed to be editing a couple of reviews / unboxings for you guys. I know I don't usually do them, but I kind of want to get back into the rhythm of it, unboxing figures, giving you guys my personal take. So I do have a couple of figures that are on the way, so just be a little bit more patient with me. It feels like every time I'm about to finish up the video, there's like something that I feel like I just need to get off my chest. So let's get straight into it. First of all, I wanted to talk about this new Maximum Marvel Legends Thor action figure. And look, I was completely on the fence when it came down to this figure because there's really nothing that like thought-provoking. It's not like evoking anything amazing from me. It's not mind-blowing. I like the wired cape, but then at the same time, there are other manufacturers that have been doing wired capes on regular action figures. Like McFarlane has been doing it for his DC line. I know now he's kind of reserved it for the collector's edition line and the theatrical edition releases for his DC universe, but there have been other figures way back in the day for regular like DC multiverse figures or page punchers or DC direct figures that actually had wired capes. So it isn't like anything too groundbreaking. It's not mind-blowing. I'm not gonna like jump off my roof with excitement. So it's kind of interesting to see them kind of market that as like one of the bigger features involving the Maximum Marvel Legends line. Now there is the Throg figure, and there are some alternate head sculpts and some alternate face plates, some extra hands and things of that nature. The sculpting does appear to be a little bit more intricate than your regular baseline Marvel Legends action figure, but the audacity of Hasbro to price this at $55.99, I'm just not buying it. I'll be honest with you guys. I have no idea where that price point is coming from. I'm not sure exactly how they're factoring in the overall decline of the Marvel Legends line over the past few years. And look, not to say that I don't collect Marvel Legends action figures, but I just don't see the appeal in them. I don't see a lot of value in them most of the time. They do surprise us, with some releases here and there, but I've talked about, the pandemic playing a semi-minor role, but now the tariffs and inflation have a lot to do with these action figures being extremely expensive, and the quality just isn't there. They're consistently, like taking accessories away and just basically simplifying the releases. And here, like I said, $55.99, it's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. The Marvel Legends Maximum Spider-Man at $50 seemed to be pushing it, and there were a ton of accessories that I don't think people were ever going to really utilize. And that was my biggest gripe, even though I felt like the $50 was a good solid price point. I just felt like some of the accessories were worthless and pointless, and that's one of the bigger problems that I had with it. The Maximum Marvel Legends Hulk, on the other hand, I've also kind of had my gripes with, but the extra vinyl finish on the figure, like the new tech that was being integrated, even though it was reusing an older body mold, like that, I guess I can kind of see it. It's also technically a more deluxe size figure. It's closer to like 8 inches, and then the Deadpool one came along. But all of those figures have followed at least a consistent trend, right? Like they've been consistently either bad or good or mediocre, but for the most part, the price point wasn't like outrageous because there wasn't enough being thrown in there. I think some of the problems that people had with, for example, the Hulk was a reuse, but the value was still there to an extent. The Marvel Legends Spider-Man and the Deadpool, similar. They were in similar situations where it wasn't necessarily that the figures were not worth the price point. People just didn't want all of those extra accessories. They would rather Hasbro utilize that to update or to like take the body molds for the figures to a completely new level. And even though they did have upgrades, people wanted a little bit more. I think that's the consensus overall. Again, I'm not speaking for the entire community, but just kind of like compiling information, reviews, unboxings, and then a ton of comments. That's kind of the aura or the feeling that I got when it came down to the first few Marvel Legends Maximum figures. But here, like I said, this is a regular 6-inch Marvel Legends action figure. It is a more premium collectible. It does have better sculpt work. It has way more accessories than a regular Marvel Legends action figure. There's the wired cape, there's the extra Throg figure. But again, I just don't see that $55.99 price point. And I'm really scared because I do feel like that is going to be the new baseline price moving forward from the Maximum Marvel Legends line, which is absolutely insane. Could you imagine, like, maybe in 2-3 years, let's say if they do, it appears they're doing mostly just Avengers or core Avengers characters up to this point. Imagine if the next one is Captain America in like a year. Could that potentially be $60? I'm not sure exactly what's going on. Now, I will say, I've kind of noticed a little bit of a trend when it comes down to Hasbro as well, and I talked about this in my previous video, but apparently they're starting to go for a more premium feel. You know, they're starting to bump up the price. They will give you value. They will give you extra accessories. And especially with McFarlane, because he has done a lot of those Elite Edition action figures, and I think a lot of them are worth the price point, either because of the sculpt work or the extra accessories. He did release that Berserker action figure not too long ago at that $50 price point, and it came with like an insane amount of different accessories and weapons. And so I do feel like you were getting your money's worth, but it feels like a lot of these lower end manufacturers like McFarlane and Hasbro are trying to go for a more like elite style offering where it's like, you're going to pay us $50. We're still going to give you a ton of different accessories, a ton of different sculpt work, like better articulation, but we just don't want to manufacture collectibles on the lower end anymore. Maybe it's just not viable. It's not as successful as it once was. And so their objective now is to kind of make collectibles that are not entry-level action figures. These are meant for hardcore collectors, people that have been in the hobby, or people that want like that end-all version of that particular character. And it's going to get very interesting moving forward, because we also wonder out loud whether some of these body molds are ever going to be utilized without those accessories. Like, are we ever going to get a Maximum Legends Spider-Man body mold in a regular like $30 release, or are we ever going to see that vinyl finish Marvel Legends Hulk ever released with the toe hinge and everything? Only time will tell. But this is getting really interesting. It's heating up. I've talked about tariffs and how they're affecting action figure manufacturing overall, and how it's going to get extremely expensive. And I've said this before. There were a few comments of people being really angry over some of the comments that I said, but some people were saying, oh, who cares about your action figures? Your cheap plastic from overseas. Ladies and gentlemen, I talk about action figures on this channel, so I'm not really going to get into it. But if you think that only action figures are what's going to get expensive because they're shipped from overseas, think again. There are a lot of like minor little things you don't think about that are also being manufactured overseas, whether it's your shoes, the t-shirt you're wearing, your sweatpants, your socks, your toothbrushes. I mean, all of that stuff is actually manufactured overseas, and that stuff is about to get really, really expensive if this whole tariff situation continues. But again, we only talk about action figures here, so that's all I'm going to talk about. I do feel like the manufacturing side of things is going to be extremely expensive, and these manufacturers are never going to bite the bullet. And that's another big problem to emphasize, that a lot of the people in power assume that these companies or that these other countries are going to pay for tariffs, when in reality it's always the consumer. They're just going to pass on the cost to the consumer, and they're going to be the ones that have to fork over the extra dough, the extra lettuce. So yeah, this will be retailing at $56.99, and I went on Big Bad Toy Store, Entertainment Earth, and Amazon, and I believe all of them had them at that regular $56.99 price point. But I wouldn't even doubt it if there's a restock later, like let's say a few months later, after maybe like it flies off the shelves or it sells out incredibly well. And if they decide to restock it, I wouldn't be surprised if there's an even higher markup on like Entertainment Earth and Big Bad Toy Store. Like I said, when I checked it, there wasn't, but I could see them doing that because that's usually what happens on Entertainment Earth and Big Bad Toy Store. Which, I just want to clarify, because somebody else also made some comments about me showcasing some of the images of Big Bad Toy Store, and how certain people felt like I was like taking advantage of that, because Big Bad Toy Store is like such an evil corporation. But I was just putting the example of a small retailer, right? Because people always want me to compare it to like Amazon or Walmart. That's what happens to small retailers. They have to mark up their collectibles because they just can't keep pace, right? They only sell collectibles, whereas in like Walmart, they sell like refrigerators and TVs and everything else. And so, their profit margins are bigger compared to like Big Bad Toy Store, which probably only sells like a few $1,000s on a monthly basis. But that's neither here nor there. I just wanted to emphasize a couple of different things that I mentioned in my previous video. But yeah, it's going to get interesting moving forward. The Maximum Legends line is apparently here to stay, but it's going to get way more expensive. I think the deeper we get into 2026 and heading into 2027, I don't even want to think about there being another potential price hike. And by the way, because the Maximum Marvel Legends line just had a price hike, I'm going to assume that the regular Marvel Legends line could potentially be moving up to that $30 price point, which we already knew was going to happen, but it just wasn't real enough to most of us. Like, we just ignored it, swept it under the rug, but it's definitely becoming a reality now. But anyways, I did want to also talk about some other figures because I've literally ranted on about one particular collectible for like 10 minutes now. That's what you get when you click on this channel. I apologize. I did want to talk about the the Predator 2 poster series Predator Hunter action figure, and I don't know if they've ever done this particular body mold. I'm going to assume that they have because it looks a little bit familiar. I think I've seen it at like Target or Walmart or somewhere. I'm assuming that it's just like a repainted version of an older Predator, unless it's a brand new body mold, in which case I completely apologize. It's a really good looking sculpt. I've always wanted a really good looking NECA Predator action figure in my display, especially with the McFarlane action figure universe, because his is closer to NECA. They're both about like, 1/10 to 7-inch scales. And so they make sense next to each other. And especially considering those, the DC and Alien and Predator 2 packs completely sold out and were extremely expensive to get. So that's, like the next best option. You can pick up a really good looking Predator figure. This looks absolutely amazing. It will come a spear, a skull with its spine still attached, and then it will also come with a little skyscraper gargoyle base. And this thing, as I said, it feels like a more deluxe offering from NECA. I don't think that they've ever done that particular base before. It feels like it's something new. Like I said, I don't really follow everything Predator NECA related, but I really like this. Now, I checked it on Big Bad Toy Store and Entertainment Earth, and both of them are featuring them at about $50. I'm assuming that the retail is going to be a little bit less because that's usually what happens with these smaller retailers. I'm assuming that Walmart and Target will probably have it for about $45, maybe a little bit under that, but it's a really good like deluxe solid offering. And manufacturers, I wouldn't say like NECA, but just in general, very rarely include these type of like little display bases or little stands. I think it's something extra. It's something really cool, neat, intricate. Not to mention, this is something that you can utilize with other action figure lines. Like, obviously it's meant specifically for a scene in the movie, I'm assuming, or is it a part of the poster? I haven't watched the movie in quite some time, but it's something that's specific to Predators. But just looking at the design, the overall aesthetic of it, like you could easily swap this and put it into, like Daredevil posed on top of it, or maybe a Batman on top of it. So it's a really cool, neat design piece, and really it's as affordable as it's going to get, because if you go through eBay, if you go through like these third-party sellers or customizers, sometimes for just a simple base, you're paying about $40 to $50 alone for the base, right? If it's like a customizer here in the States, or even if it's being shipped from overseas. But in this particular case, you're getting something that is, like directly from the warehouse, directly from the manufacturer. It's going to be really well built, very durable, and I really like this offering. I'm hoping they continue to do the little display bases in the foreseeable future. Maybe they can do something for the Alien universe, or maybe even their horror universe. I think it's something cool, something a little bit out of left field, and something that people really didn't expect. And then lastly, I really quickly wanted to touch on the 3-0 MLDX Mega Man action figure, which is supposed to be an event exclusive version of the figure. I'm not sure exactly what event this is. Like, it's some sort of convention. I tried reading through the description, but it really didn't clarify. The only real difference from what I can tell, and I've been comparing both of of the promotional images for the original iteration, and then this one, apparently it's just that pixelated little Mega Man head, and I'm going to assume that the packaging is also going to be slightly different. But I tried comparing like the color palette, the accessories, and things of that nature, and they all apparently were the same. It's not to take anything away from this event exclusive version, but it's just to kind of put it into your brain. Like, this isn't anything groundbreaking, it's nothing new, we've seen it before. It will include a charge effect piece, a rockbuster forearm, 2 pairs of interchangeable hands, and then 2 different face plates. And then, as I mentioned earlier, there's the little pixelated Mega Man head. Now, I'm assuming this doesn't get ported onto the actual figure. I didn't see any promotional images that really talked about this new little accessory piece. I'm assuming that it represents like an extra life in the video game. I haven't played it in what it feels like 15 to 16 years, so I can't quite remember exactly what purpose it serves, but it's something cool. It's a limited edition. It's probably going to come in like a limited edition convention exclusive box. And I know I've been covering 3-0 pretty consistently over the past, I would say, like 3 to 4 months, maybe a little bit longer than that. And in the comment section, I've noticed that people always have like raving reviews when it comes down to this manufacturer. Granted, it isn't for everybody. It is definitely on the pricier side. Most of their figures are hitting triple digits easily. This one isn't quite there. I think it's because it's a event exclusive figure, it's probably going to veer closer to about $50. But they have offered a lot of these Mega Man figures for roughly about like 40 to 45. So they're still semi-affordable. I've mentioned this before. I know they're completely different source material, but they're still based on the Mega Man franchise. And I've been kind of going down the rabbit hole of the Jada Toys Mega Man action figure universe. So as I mentioned, I do actually have a review coming up very soon featuring a Jada Toys Mega Man collectible, but they're not that far off in terms of price point. And as I said, I know they're based on different versions or different video games within the franchise, but it's still nice to see Mega Man collectibles being extremely affordable. I said this in the previous video, but if you're a huge fan of the franchise or just retro style video games in general, even though some of these are still somewhat modern because they still have sequels releasing every few years, but they're all video game franchises that started around like the 90s, 80s, and early 2000s. You have, for example, Mortal Kombat being brought to us by McFarlane. You have the Street Fighter universe brought to us by Storm Collectibles and Jada Toys. You have the Mega Man universe brought to us by Jada, as well as 3-0. And the list goes on and on. If you love retro arcade style video games, especially fighters, now is the time to pick up these collectibles because manufacturers are now open to producing those style of collectibles, which is not something that we used to see maybe like, 5 to 10 years ago. They're making a comeback, and as I said, if you're a fan of these, even a casual fan, and you like action figures, make sure to pick these up because I don't think that this wave of retro style action figures is going to last forever. But as always, this is just my personal opinion, my personal take. I'm very curious to see what all of you guys have to say. Let me know your thoughts down below. I apologize for my ridiculously long buffoon rant at the beginning, but sometimes I get too passionate about action figures, and well, that's what happens. But stay safe out there, enjoy the hobby, pose your action figures, play around with them. There are a ton of new collectibles hitting us very soon, and we will try to do our best to keep you guys in the loop at all times. Stay safe, and I will see you guys in the next one.